Put your hands together for Old Men in Sweat. Old Men in Sweat. Put your hands together, y'all. Barry D, Tommy T. We gonna have a good time tonight. Let's go. It's Old Men in Sweat.
It's not a great time for us and everybody in LA. That's just the tragedy that's going on in LA as we speak is unbelievable, right? I mean, Barry D and I, give you some quick background on us. I mean, we're both New Yorkers. We're upstate New Yorkers. We were born and raised in Rome, New York, and we both moved to Los Angeles when we were 20 and 21 years old, 20 and 22 years old. We moved to LA. We lived in LA pretty much our most of our adult lives. So I consider myself more of an Angelino than I do a Roman now. Even though we grew up in Rome, I'm a Dodger fan, I'm a Lakers fan, I'm a Rams fan. I mean, I'm Californian, like you and I both. And the areas that were devastated is that's our old neighborhoods. That's where we lived. It's terrible. So we just we're sad like everybody else. Yeah. What's going on and obviously it affects the sports world. It affects everything. We have the playoff weekend, Wildcard weekend coming up on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. There's always a Monday night game. This year it happens to be the Vikings at the Rams. So I don't know. I don't think that game can be played there, right? I mean,
no. And like it was good how you said that. Like, we obviously will never forget where we're from, our roots, Rome, New York. But our adult life, was spent in LA, and we know all those neighborhoods, Pacific Palisades neighborhood, Malibu. I guess remember that place, the Real Inn? It was a seafood place. That little. I
read today. I know that I've been hearing about all the restaurants, that were just burnt to the ground, and I just saw today that the Real Inn was in there, and we went every weekend. That was our stop on the way up to Malibu. It's crazy.
And that other one, Moon. Remember that one called Moon Shadows?
Of course.
That was on. I think Moon Shadows. In fact, a sports reference. I think it was when the Kings played the Canadians in the Cup. What year is that? 94, 3, 4.
Yeah, that was with. It was either 93 or 94. It was with Gretzky.
Yeah, and I went, and it was in Montreal. I think it was game 2 or 3. I can't remember. But anyway, I went to Malibu, and I was running late on the way back, and I wanted to watch the game. And I think I stopped at Moon Shadows, and I was watching the game. And that was the game where the Canadians were notorious going in the locker rooms and measuring sticks before the game. And they knew whose stick was what and all that. And, they have those rules of the length of the stick and curve of the stick and all that. And McSorley, the defensive guy, Marty
McSorley.
Yeah, and I guess in the third period, usually they put away all those illegal sticks, the equipment manager. And somehow McSorley got his hand on the stick that the Canadians knew was one of the illegal ones as far as like McSorley's stick. And they called and they challenged it. And they won that penalty, and I think it's like a double major or some kind of crazy penalty.
It was a 5-minute major, which means that if you score on the power play, the Kings don't get their man back. So it's got to be the whole 5 minutes. Normally on a minor, if it's a 2-minute minor penalty, if the other team scores a goal, then you get your man back. You're back to even strength. But when it's a 5-minute major, McSorley had. I think they scored 2 or 3 goals.
Yeah, and that changed the whole series. That was it. That was the end. But we used to always go down there. Remember, we used to go to Zuma Beach a lot.
Yeah.
And I guess Zuma Beach is where the firefighters are like hanging out. It's like their office right now. They got
their base camp.
Yeah, that whole big parking lot near Zuma Beach. It's devastating. And I know a lot of people, unfortunately, there's people out there that are just assholes. And, and they just want to see people go down, or just see people fail or whatever. There's a lot of bad, negative people out there. And people were talking, you go online, you see them, and they're like, oh, well, so, too bad for them. They can go to their other house, because Palisades is rich and Malibu's rich.
That's not accurate. That's what that's the other thing is the way it's covered. I understand the news coverage. They have to list all of the celebrities that lost homes. I don't know why they do that. We know celebrities live in the Palisades. Of course, it's one of the most beautiful, cities and neighborhoods in the world. You know that it's full of celebrities, but then they list them all. And, as you're going through the list, I mean, these celebrities like, these James Woods, Jamie Lee Curtis, Steve Guttenberg, these people aren't working. Like, what, you think that they're just going to go build another $5 million home? It doesn't. No. It's like, most of the people that live there, they lose their home. They can't just go build another home.
It's so people think because they report on that, that's all the people that live in Malibu and Palisades are all these rich people. It's not true. And some of those rich people, like you said, they haven't worked in years. Like you said, they're not going to go build another $5 million house. And I don't know if they all have a second house. That's not always true either. So I just felt like, it's devastating. It's terrible, especially that Pacific Palisades area, because it's such a little community. I think it's like 25,000 little people in that. They got a nice grocery store and movie theater. They got remember, it's like Westwood Village but different. It's awesome,
and it's elevated. It's on the bluff, and you get the ocean view. From so many of those places. You're having coffee, you're getting all the ocean view up there. I mean, they have the Santa Monica stairs where we used to do our workouts, where we climb the stairs. Like 10 or 12 level stairs up the side of the mountain there. And you just got the whole view of the Palisades up on the cliff. That's all gone.
It's all gone. And the fire didn't jump into Santa Monica yet, did it?
No, but it's still active. And the winds are supposed to pick up again. And these winds are, at some point, they're level 2 hurricane winds, through those canyons. And that's how the fire spreads, because it's so dry. So it's just picking up embers like hot burnt embers, and they're taking them and they're throwing them through the air onto a house or onto another bush or onto another tree. So the embers are just getting blown towards the ocean. That's there's really nothing they can do about it. It's impossible to stop.
And then it went to Altadena near Pasadena, and then one started over there.
I don't even know if that's from that fire. I don't know how that started. And then, the last one, where my daughter was affected was the one in Nichols Canyon, which is just above Hollywood Boulevard, a mile and a half above Hollywood Boulevard. That one started last night, I think. So, yeah. Yeah,
that one's really close, because that's where, when I lived on Formosa and Alta Vista, you could see that mountain. I saw it on the news.
You would have been down at your brother's again in Orange County, like when the Rodney King riots, when you saw the guy running out of the store with a TV, and you said, "Oh my God, I got to get out of here." Remember?
It wasn't funny, but what happened was you watching TV and everything.
Get lunch. No, you went to get lunch. You came out. You saw guys running out of the store with TVs, and you said, "I got to get out of here."
And then what happened as I came back down my street, I saw some of my neighbors at Sunset and at Fountain. The north end of Sunset and the south end of Fountain, putting the big dumpsters, the garbage dumpsters from the apartment complexes to barricade the road. I go, "What are you guys doing?" They go, "People are coming." Well, I just saw over at Circuit City, they were stealing TVs. And they go, "People are coming." So I ran in the house and I called Gary, because this was before cell phones. And I go, "Look," I go, I got to get out of here. And he goes, "Okay, just get out of the road and just come." He goes, just go fast. Don't worry about the cops. Just go. Yeah. And it was the weirdest thing. It was surreal, because I got on the 101 thruway, it
was empty.
It was empty. I was like, no one, this is great. I was like, oh my, I thought I was going to get on a thruway with a lot of people, and then it was going to be even worse. And I just blew down there. And but if I still live there today, did your daughter say that they're evacuating around that Hollywood area?
They didn't have to evacuate last night. The Nichols Canyon fire started. She thought she was going to have to be evacuated, but I guess it didn't go as far down as where she was. So she's still in place. But she's working, on a TV show right now. She's working on Always Sunny. So obviously they're at Fox Studios, but they're not working right now. Like, she's working from home, and that's the other thing. It's like the city's going to shut down.
For
the most part,
Yeah, no. The Laker game for tomorrow's off.
It's off, yeah.
And to transition, from obviously a sad scenario, and there's a lot of people, you sit here, talk about stuff on a podcast, and it's like we got roofs over our head right now, God bless. And, those people, I feel for them. And, people will bound together, the people get together, they'll come together, things will come back. It's just really sad. But, the other sports thing is the Viking game against the Rams on Monday night. I know that's a few more days away than the Laker game, but that's an open-ish air stadium. The air.
What's today? Is today Thursday? They can't play. There's no way they can play there. They have an alternative site. They chose Arizona, the Glendale, Arizona, the Cardinals' home field. That makes more sense. They should do that now. The Vikings can't fly into LA on Saturday. I think normally they would fly in on Saturday for a Monday night game, is my guess.
Yeah.
They can't fly into LAX in 2 days.
No,
they're going to stay at a hotel. They're going to stay at a hotel down on the beach. Come on.
They're going to have to make. They're going to have to make the decision like tomorrow.
I'm guessing the decision's already been made. I don't even. I mean, it's so devastating that the NFL they can't be thinking, oh, we can, let's just wait and see what happens in the next 48 hours. If they've already picked the site, Glendale, Arizona, the alternative site, they know they're going to use it. They just haven't announced it yet. I don't know why. I don't understand.
Yeah, what are they waiting for? Because I thought about, I know that stadium's got a roof over it, but then it's got open. It's open. It's actually considered an open stadium because there was a time they had a game there and lightning was striking and they had to delay the game. Yeah. Because it's considered an open air stadium. So even
if it wasn't an open air stadium, even if it was a complete dome, the air quality still affects an indoor stadium. Right. So it's not, but there's way more than just the air quality. It's the traffic. It's keeping the roads clear for the the responders. Here's the other thing. It's so before this happened, of course, I'm watching the Vikings play Detroit on that last Monday night game, and so I'm all prepared to talk about the game. I came away. I was, you and I were texting. I came away from that game thinking the Vikings looked awful. They looked terrible. It was the worst game of the year by far. Yep. They were inside the 5-yard line. They had 20 plays inside the 5-yard line, and they were terrible. Darnold was terrible, and I came away from that game going, they're not beating the Rams. No. They're not going to beat if they were going into LA this Monday, I would be taking the Rams. They're just not going to beat the Rams. As good of a season as they had, what did they end up, 14-3?
Yep. Now,
there's nothing more Viking-ish than going there's nothing more Viking than going 14-2, very deep, right? I'm not pulling for the Vikings, but there's nothing more Viking-ish than going 14-2, coming up the last game of the year, having a chance at the number 1 seed in the playoffs throughout the entire playoffs, home field advantage, and then losing the next 2 games, getting blown out of the last game of the year, and then getting blown out in this Wildcard game, which is what's going to happen because that's all we ever know of the Vikings. That's all they've ever done. They always have to be the Vikings. They should just change their name. They should change their name to the Minnesota, the Swedes or what was the rivals to the Vikings, the Minnesota Romans. They should just change their name.
It is sad because it is very Viking of them that they get into that game that they could get home field advantage throughout. And they've been playing really good, and they played Detroit pretty good that first game too, when Detroit even had most of their guys. And and they get to that game, and sure enough, in their fashion, they play their worst game of their lives.
Game of the year. It wasn't even close.
And then the worst thing is they end up 14-3, and they end up a 5 seed because the team they lost to is 15-2, and they're in their division, and they have to go on the road. And it's remarkable. It really is.
Look at Barry, this is what they're going to have to do now. They're going to probably have to beat the Rams in LA. Then they're probably going to have to go to Philly and beat Philly in Philly outside, which they can't do. Okay. They'll never do. And then they're going to have to go to Detroit and beat Detroit. It's just the Vikings who they are. I mean, the couple times that jumped to my mind is the last time they were in this position, Brett Favre had the ball at the 50-yard line and only had to run 10 yards for a first down, and they're going to win that game against New Orleans, right? That was the bounty game or whatever.
Yeah, right? They had a chance to win that game.
They were the better team. They had a great year. Brett Favre had a magical year. And, of course, Brett Favre, he's wearing a Vikings uniform and he just throws another one of his 280 interceptions or whatever he threw in his career. Worst interception ever, right? They lose that game. And then the time before that was maybe 1998, was it, when they had Randy Moss,
Culpepper,
Dante Culpepper, and they had the kicker who didn't miss a kick the entire year until he misses a 38-yarder? Was it Gary Williamson?
They did Robert Smith, Culpepper, Carter, Moss. They had John Randall. They had a great team. They had a great defense.
It was loaded with Hall of Famers,
and they were 15. They were 15-1.
15-1, and then wasn't it Gary Anderson that missed the extra point?
Yeah, so Gary Anderson from the Cuse was I think he was 30 for 30, or he was like
perfect that year. He missed the kick, and then not even as recent as when Zimmer was there. He had that one guy, Walsh, that missed like a 3-yard field goal
in Seattle.
Against Seattle. I mean, it was like 18, 19 yards or something.
No, they do these things, and they always do it like you said. And the only chance, there's always a chance, but really the chance they had was they had to win that game, because then they could have been home, and their home field advantage with the noise is good. And you don't have to go anywhere, and you can rest, and you can do all that. But they blew that. So now I already calculated the only way they move forward if they beat the Rams. I'm kind of happy the game will be in Arizona. The Viking fans are going to go. They're going to travel. They're going to go. In fact, the Wilts, the owners, bought 2,000 tickets for $1,000 a ticket or something. They spent $2 million on tickets in Detroit. And then they turned around and sold them to the season ticket owners for like $200 because they wanted to get a crowd behind the team in Detroit. Yeah. So I don't know if they're going to do that for this game, but regardless, the Minnesota, the fans of the Vikings are going to travel better than the Rams. So I kind of like that neutral field thing. But the thing is, I figured it out. This is the calculation. If they end up beating the Rams, which is going to be a hard task to do, if they do that, then I need the Packers to beat the Eagles,
which could happen. It could happen, but it won't. But I need
Washington to beat Tampa Bay, because if that happens, like the planets align, then the Vikings would play home against Washington, and Packers would go play Detroit. And the Packers, if they get by the Eagles, even though they don't have Watson anymore and they're Alexander, their defensive back, they know Detroit. They could beat them too. So. If in some weird world, I'm trying to put a Rubik's Cube together how to connect the Vikings to get a home game 2, and then maybe the championship game if the Packers could knock off Detroit and the Vikings could beat Washington at home, and then the Vikings will play the Packers. But I'm still confused.
Again, though, that takes me back to the beginning of this conversation. Yeah. That's what you're resorting to now. And here's the other thing: they didn't lose to Detroit, 35-34 in a great game where they both went for it, and it wasn't like that kind of game. I mean, they stunk. They were terrible. And so you're watching the game and you're going, oh, this is the Vikings. They're not halfway through that game, you're like, oh, they're not winning this game, And then I start thinking, oh shoot, they got to play the Rams next week. They ain't beating the Rams. Of course, you're a true fan, so you're going through scenarios.
Yeah,
which give the Vikings the best path to the Super Bowl, and I'm I'm just a football fan right now, and I'm telling you, there's no chance. There's no chance. They're not going to make it.
And this is what you do when you're a Viking fan. You go through these scenarios because it never ends up really being what it should be. It always ends up not being the Blair Walsh thing, the Gary Anderson thing, the Brett
Favre, right? It's always weird. Well, the funny thing about the Vikings is the Vikings are the team that was on the losing end of the creation of the Hail Mary pass.
Yeah.
Right? 1975 was it against the Dallas Cowboys in Bloomington, Minnesota. The irony is Drew Pearson ran Nate Wright up that pitcher's mound. Yeah. That Ahmad Rashad.
Nate Wright fell back.
Yeah, Nate Wright fell back. But that was, that play was called Hail Mary or whatever. There was no Hail Mary football. Hail Mary was not connected to the NFL until that play. Yeah. So Staubach goes in the huddle. He calls Hail Mary, throws the 50-yard touchdown pass to Drew Pearson, and that was the start. Now, how many Hail Marys do we have? There's been hundreds of them, right?
Hundreds.
The Vikings were the original Hail Mary victim.
No, the Vikings are, the Vikings and the Bills, rival each other for, infamy. I mean, it's the Bills, though, now you can look at them and think they could make a Super Bowl. They got a shot.
Well,
and then if they get there, they got a team that could win it. The Vikings are always kind of teetering. They're always competitive, or they always make the playoffs, but then they never really make it. And then the chances when they have these super teams, like that Favre team was really good too. They probably could have beat the Colts. The Saints went on and beat the Colts. And then the team, the 15-1 team, if they beat Atlanta that game, they probably would have beat Denver. I think they would have beat Denver. I mean, that team was loaded. And
or at least, they haven't been to a Super Bowl since the early 70s.
Yeah, 76.
Yeah, they lost to the Raiders, right? Like
they lost to Pitt. They lost to the Raiders, Miami, and
the Raiders were their last loss, though, right?
The Raiders were the last one. The first one was Kansas City. They got beat by Len Dawson.
Yeah, that was Super Bowl 2 or 3.
Yeah, then they lost
Super Bowl 3. That was Super Bowl 3, and then they lost to the Steelers. They lost to the Steelers in 72 or 73 or something.
That terrible quarterback, that Bradshaw, terrible. The guy sucks.
Yeah, and then they lost to the Oakland Raiders in 76 when Old Man Willie was returning the interception, the 23-7.
They got hammered that game. They got crushed that game. But then Miami, they got beat by Miami too with Kick and Zonka.
Yeah.
And with Kick and Zonka, the Miami game and the KC game and the Pitt game were close games. Like Pitt, they beat them 16-6, but it was most of the game. It was like some weird score, like 9-6, or I can't remember.
It was a running game. Well, the first Super Bowl they went to against Kansas City in Super Bowl 3, that was their quarterback was Joe Kapp.
Yeah.
Right, and then Tarkenton was the next 2.
Tarkenton was the next 3, right?
Oh, they lost 4.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Tarkenton lost 3. Yeah.
Tarkenton lost 3. And then the Kansas City game, the big player was
Miami, Pittsburgh, and Oakland. They lost to all 4. Yeah.
The big player in the KC Super Bowl was Taylor. He smoked them.
Yeah. Well,
Otis Taylor.
That game wasn't close either.
That game was not as close, 23-7 or something.
Yeah.
And then Kick and Zonka ran all over them. And then the defense of the Raiders crushed them, and Stabler just smoked them too. And then the Pitt game was that game was going to be hard no matter what, because that defense Steelers had was tough. But the problem is, they lost 4. The Bills lost 4 in a row. I don't know what's worse. The Bills got smoked like a couple times and gave up 50 points. So I don't know, but. The thing is, if you had to look at those 2 teams now that have lost, never won. Denver came back and won 2 Super Bowls. They're 2 wins and 4 losses.
Yeah.
Denver at one time was 0-4. If you had to look at Buffalo and Vikings and said, okay, which one of these guys has the best chance not just to get back but win it? And you would say Buffalo. I mean,
for sure. Well, but up until this week, I would have given Minnesota a very good chance. It just ended up weird.
So let me ask, because I got to just ask you I want you to analyze a little bit of it. We'll do some picks if you want to talk about something else, but because I'm obviously like obsessed with this because this is Wildcard weekend. But and the thing is too, people don't understand. Like I watched that game at home on Monday, and I didn't want to watch it at home. Like I have superstitions, like usually I go to the bar. I got this Buffalo Wild Wings I go to. And I go on the patio.
There's a Buffalo Wild Wings in your neighborhood too?
Yeah, and I go to the patio because no one sits on the patio. It's the patio that they use with the garage doors. They open them in the summer. And they got all TVs and tables in there. Everyone's in the bar, the big bar area, watching all the games and all the noise. And I went in there one week because I used to go to this other bar, and it was so small, and everyone would talk to you all the time that I'd go home and I'd have to watch the highlights of the game because I forgot what happened because everybody's bothering you, and I got to watch it. I got to focus, right? And so I went to the Buffalo Wild Wings, and I didn't know what to expect, and then I saw the patio. And I asked the manager, I go, how come no one's sitting on the patio? Can I sit there? Is it okay? He goes, sure you can. He goes, people just like to be in there, like with all the games on. He goes, but there's 15 TVs in the patio. He goes, what do you want to watch? I go, the Vikings. And I go, put me in the corner, like down near the door, the exit door, so I can go in and out to get air. He goes, okay. And I go, that way I won't bother people. If families come in to have dinner, I'll let them know I might be a little loud, but they'll be far enough away from me. He goes, okay, that's good. Thank you for being considerate. I go, no problem. I go, one more thing. I go, can you put the audio on it? Can I listen to the audio so I don't have to listen to the local Jets or Giant audio, even if they're on at the same time? He goes, yeah, no problem. So every week since that week, I think it was week 6 or 7, awesome. he would have my area ready to go, and he told the kids that work there, that guy's you got to have the game on for that guy. Look up when the Vikings are playing. Got to have the audio on for him. And he goes, just put all 3 TVs in that corner on. So I sit there, and I'm sitting at a table, and I got like 3 TVs, and they all got the Vikings, and then the other TVs got the other games, and I got the audio on, and I just sit there and I watch it. And I only brought Mikey. Remember Mikey, the Green Bay fan that came on the show? He came once, and he goes, oh, my God. He goes, it's like a man cave. He goes, like, you got your own man cave. I go, and I don't miss a play. I got a waitress that comes. I just sit here, and I just watch, and I watch, and I watch. So I didn't do that Monday, the Detroit game. I stayed home. And nothing against Kim. Like Kim, I love Kim. But I think Kim's bad luck. I think she's bad luck. I swear to God. So she.
Wait a second. Doesn't Kim listen to the podcast sometimes?
Yeah, but I'll just tell her it got screwed up this time, and then nothing. It didn't.
Jesus.
So anyway, I was watching the game, and I watched half of it in the bedroom, and then she wanted to go to bed, so then I had to move to the living room, and I'm out there in the living room. And I was out of my element that I've been in as I've been on this win streak at Buffalo Wild Wing. And I'm like, man, this isn't working. And then I remembered in my head why, going way back to that Seattle game. I'm going to circle back now to that Seattle Viking game at Seattle in the playoffs, 2012, 14, 12. That game, that Blair Walsh missed that kick. 2012
I think it was 14.
Yeah. So I was watching that game at home because it was a playoff game. And I was in the bedroom. And it's a crazy game back and forth. And I only go out to the kitchen to get something. I come back in. And I'm in the bedroom and I'm watching it. And Blair Walsh, they line up. It was like a 10-yarder, a 6-yarder? It was
nothing.
And it's going, and I don't even know if there was wind, and anyway, I'm like this. I'm crouched down and I'm watching. And I'm like, okay, he's going to make it. He's going to make it. Right when he strikes the ball, she comes in the door of the bedroom. She goes, hey, do you know that? And I go, what are you doing? And then I hear the announcer go, oh, my God, it's off to the side. And I look at the TV, and she's still standing there. And I'm like, oh, man. I go, you jinxed me. and she got all pissed off at me, and she walks out. So Monday against Detroit, even though I know this is a lot of superstition and a lot of bullshit, the Vikings are still the Vikings. As you said, they will be the Vikings. I have to hold on to certain things that will make it maybe that it's okay. So I have made a commitment now that Monday night, first of all, I don't like it that it's Monday night, but I have to deal with it. I am not watching it at home. There's no way I'm going back to the place where I was lucky.
You have no chance at home.
I'm going to go back there. I got no chance. So, but she, it's funny. The only one time that it worked for me at home was when the Minneapolis Miracle.
Okay.
When the Case Keenum threw that, and I ran out of the bedroom. And she goes, what's going on? She thought something went wrong. I go, no, it's good. It's good. It's the first time it's ever good. Yeah. But I got to go back.
And then they lost 35-7 the next week.
Yeah, then they got crushed the next week. Yeah. But let me
okay, so let's switch gears. Let's switch gears real quick away from the Vikings. So I'm looking at the games. And there's only one game that's going over this weekend. I know you bet the overs. Washington and Tampa Bay will be over, right? Oh, yeah. Got that game. Yeah. But I don't think Denver, Buffalo's going over. I don't think that Pittsburgh and Baltimore is going over. That's going to be a pretty low-scoring affair. Yeah. Pittsburgh has no offense, right?
Saturday is Houston and Chargers.
I mean, that might go over, but the Chargers are not a high-scoring team. They want to run the ball. So that game's not going over. That game's low. It's only 42. So, that might go over, but it's a low-scoring game.
I think you're right. Well, you know how it goes in the playoffs. They don't want to make a lot of mistakes.
And then on Monday night, it's 48. I don't know. Are the Vikings going to come out and play better on offense? That game could go over, maybe, They're
going to have to play better on offense, or they'll get blown out then anyway and get garbage points. I think you're right, though. I think, a lot of teams play it close to the chest. I think, they want to run the ball. Teams want to run the ball, no mistakes. You don't want turnovers.
Green Bay and Philly could go over, but Philly wants to just run Saquon Barkley most of the game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then Denver and Buffalo, Buffalo's an 8.5-point favorite, so you got to figure Buffalo's going to score 20 to 25 points. Denver's got a good defense. So if that game falls in line with the point spread, you figure Buffalo wins like 24-16 or something like that, or something like that around there, right? So I don't know. I just think that Washington Tampa Bay is the only clear-cut over in this game. I know you like to bet the overs.
Yeah, no, I was looking at the games all week, and I'm like, it's really it's almost you have to change the strategy and just look at a team, because it's too iffy in the playoffs. Like, I think the Chargers Texans, Harbaugh is going to run the ball. He's going to run the ball, and the Texans have not been playing well at all on offense or even defense, but he's going to run the ball, try to control the clock. The Steelers-Ravens is going to be one of those AFC North,
right now, the Steelers are playing terrible football. They look awful. They only have they don't have any weapons on offense. They like to have a bruising running game, and they have that big back Najee Harris.
I like him.
He's not a bruiser. He's not a bruising running back. He's huge, but he doesn't run hard. Yeah. He tries to juke you more than he tries to run over you. So he doesn't fit the Steeler mold. They drafted him out of Bama. He's a big guy. He's his fourth year, I think. Yeah. He's a big guy, but he's not like, Jerome Bettis. He's not like, some of the big Bam Morris they had in the Super Bowl '95. He's not like some of these big backs that just run over people. And then Pickens is he's their big play guy, but he's in and out of the lineup. He dropped a bunch of passes last week.
He's a head case too. He's always a head case.
Yeah. So Pittsburgh is not playing good. But the problem is Baltimore's a 9.5-point favorite.
That's
crazy, right? So, again, that game is going to fall right on that line, meaning that if Baltimore's up by 3 points, chances are late in the game, they're going to be driving in the fourth quarter. They're going to be driving for a touchdown to give them a good sized lead. But I think that game's going to fall right around the 10-point lead. Or the flip side of that is if Pittsburgh's down by 17, they're going to be driving for a late touchdown, just a garbage touchdown to keep it close.
Yep.
So that 9.5 points is something that tells me stay away from it. I wouldn't even go near it. The game's going to fall right on that line. I like the Chargers over Houston. Houston's playing terrible football, right? This C.J. Stroud, they call it the sophomore slump, which is, that's bullshit. C.J. Stroud, he had his first year at Ohio State, I think, was better than his second year at Ohio State, just like this. His first year at Houston, he was awesome. This year, not so awesome. Then they lost the wide receiver. They lost Tank Dell, I think it was.
They lost Diggs, and then they lost Dell.
Yeah. So now they're just down to the one receiver. They got a good one still. Oh, they got Nico Collins.
Nico. Yeah, but I think that has thrown off Stroud, those injuries, but they definitely haven't played as well as everyone thought they were going to play. They were a media darling to start the season. They won that division by default because no one else.
They're no good. They're no good right now. So that game, again, that game's going to fall right on the over-under line. It's 42. So that game's going to be around 23-20 or something like that, 23-17. The Chargers are good, but I don't know about the Chargers. I mean, they lost to Tampa Bay like 40-17, like in week 15 or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, Tampa Bay scored 40 points off. The Baker Mayfield, to me, he's like the biggest surprise in the second part of the year. He's good. Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold are both highly drafted quarterbacks that rekindled their career in places you would never expect.
Crazy.
Baker Mayfield ends up in Tampa Bay, following in the in the shoes of Tom Brady, and he's actually lived up to the standard that Brady set in a couple of years that he was there. Baker Mayfield's been great. Sam Darnold, he bounces around like Jets, the Carolina Panthers. Who else?
Carolina and the Jets, and San Fran. He plays San Fran for.
Okay, yeah, San Fran, and then he goes to Minnesota, and he's just been fantastic. Except for the last game, he's been fantastic. He played himself into a $50 million a year contract. Now the Vikings are going to have to make a decision after the year. But I'll tell you right now, depending on this game, like if a Darnold comes in and plays like shit again this week, it's only 2 games, but hey, if you're talking about, do I sign this guy to a 4-year deal and keep him, or like do I go with the original plan of like developing JJ McCarthy next year? I don't know. It's not so easy. Like if he has 2 bad games in a row, that matters.
Well, I think this. Remember, here's a flip side to that. If he has 2 bad games, I don't think the Vikings are going to have to do any more than franchise him for a year, and I think they'll still be happy doing that. And then transition McCarthy in there, and you got Daniel Jones sitting there, and he's going to play. He'll play with them next year, and they'll get rid of Mullins. But so I think that too. I don't think anyone's going to
franchising him for a year is a last resort, because now, because of Dak Prescott's recent contract, that franchise tag has gone up to $50 million, and it's got to be in the $50 million neighborhood because it's a percentage of the highest paid contracts of the quarterback position. So, I mean, what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did was, after Baker Mayfield finished last year strong, they gave him a $2 million, a 2-year or 3-year deal at around $25 million a year. I think that's what the Vikings would like to do.
So let me ask you, if he takes a dump again in this game, that's what they'll offer him. Do you think any team out there, if he takes a dump again, is going to give him some gigantic contract?
I don't know. Like I'm saying that the last 2 games matter, but the NFL executives, the NFL owners are absolute idiots, which the separate topic that I'd like to get to quickly is the head coaches after this. But the NFL owners, they're idiots. They signed Daniel Jones.
That's what I wanted to say. That's what I meant about the other end of this. If Darnold has 2 bad games, he probably won't get the big contract. Daniel Jones had like 3 good games and got a big contract. He had 2 good games against the Vikings and another game.
I'm saying that there's going to be someone stupid enough to give Darnold a $200 million contract. There's always an owner dumb enough to give someone a $2 million contract that doesn't deserve it. Daniel Jones didn't deserve it. Dak Prescott doesn't deserve it. Carson Wentz didn't deserve it. None of them deserve it. Remember, I was telling you at the beginning of the year, these owners and general managers are always so afraid to let a quarterback walk out the door. They're so afraid because they always say, well, who's going to replace him? Well, shit. I mean, you can get anybody to replace Dak Prescott or Carson Wentz or these guys. Like, these guys are not good. They're not good. They're not $60 million good. So this could all be taken care of easily. Darnold comes out, plays great again on Monday night. They get a win. Comes out the next week, plays great, whether they win or lose in the next game at Philly, which they're not going to beat Philly. But if he comes out and plays great at Philly, and it's one of those games that goes down to the wire, well, then he makes himself the deal. Like, the deal is over. Like, he'll get his deal. He just has to play good.
Because what was weird? I know this is another weird thing. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking about things before that Detroit game. And I'm like, if he plays really good here and they get home field, and if he plays really good in the first playoff game, even if they lose the second one, I had this weird idea that I thought, okay, they're going to just sign him. And I had a weird idea. I said, okay, you got Daniel Jones as a backup, and you get another guy, and you spend the money because you're going to save money. You got JJ on that, McCarthy on that cheap rookie contract. But I thought, you know what? There's still a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. And I was like, what if we traded McCarthy to the Titans or the Browns, like an AFC team, and then try to get like Hunter from Colorado as a little
they have to trade. They have to trade McCarthy. If they sign Darnold and they got Daniel Jones, they have to trade McCarthy. The problem is they're not going to get a first-round pick for McCarthy. The other thing is he's already had major surgery, so they're not going to get a first-round pick. But the Vikings don't have a second, third, and fourth-round pick, so they're going to try to recoup 2 of those.
Okay.
They're going to try to trade him for either a third and a fourth or a second and a fourth, but they're not going to get. There's no way they get it.
Even in a weak quarterback class that only has Ward on Miami and even Colorado, Deion Sund's like, all right. I mean, even in a weak class like that, McCarthy, even just, though
McCarthy wasn't a sexy pick when the Vikings took him. He wasn't high then.
No, I know.
He's not. So right now, if McCarthy was coming out of college without an injury, he wouldn't be rated higher than Sanders or Ward. He would be rated lower than them. So coming off the injury does him no good. In fact, whoever trades for McCarthy, they're going to say, we're not giving you a second or a third for him. No way. So, but they do have to recoup something. So McCarthy,
is it better to keep him if you're not going to recoup at least a second round?
Well, if they sign Darnold to a 4-year deal, then, you can keep him around because it doesn't cost any money. But he's still a first-round draft pick. He still costs. He's not like a 4th-round pick. So he still costs. So, no, financially, you get rid of him.
Well, we're going to see. And I still think that game, I want to get away from the Viking game, but I know that I thought he was wound up and he was throwing everything high and he was throwing off the back foot. And there was a lot of pressure on the inside that he wasn't getting in the other games. He was getting pressure on the outsides and then going up into the pocket, and he was really maneuvering well in the pocket. Huh?
Look, as we're talking, it just came out. Monday night's Vikings-Rams game has been moved from SoFi Stadium to State Farm Stadium in Glendale. So I knew, it's.
How come they didn't move it to Vegas? Something happening?
Well, I don't know if it's available on Monday. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if. Let me see if the.
Is there some weird thing that they got to go to an NFC stadium?
Maybe. Let me see if the Golden Knights are playing in Vegas. No, the Golden Knights aren't playing in Vegas Monday night. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if. I don't know why they didn't move it to Vegas. Glendale. Glendale is just as close almost.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. It doesn't matter either way. But the thing is, in that game against Detroit, I just want to say one thing. He didn't play good at all. Their offensive line didn't play well at all. I think KOC got outcoached by the defensive coordinator of Detroit, Glenn, because I didn't see any adjustments at halftime. They still were in the game at halftime. They were down, 10-6? They were still in the game. Through 3 quarters, they were still in the game. And I'm telling you, this is what I think the problem was. Darnold wasn't playing well. That's a given. Quarterbacks are going to have bad games. Guys are going to have bad games, other players. When they got down in the red zone, down on the 5, I think they're within the 5-yard line 3 times, 6-7-yard line 3 times. He should have ran the ball. His quarterback was struggling.
100% true. And the other thing is not just run the ball, but the thing I hate the most when you're inside the 7-yard line is when the quarterback passes and he just does a simple 3-step drop back pass. Even if you're going to have him throw the ball, why not do a fake bootleg, roll out, like get the quarterback moving, so the quarterback is a double threat. He's a threat to run it, so then, the linebacker's got to come up. But just like they did this so much, they just said, hike, 2-step drop back and look in the end zone. What is that? If they're playing zone in the end zone.
It was ridiculous because everyone knows that when you get within the 20-yard line, let alone the 10-yard line, it shrinks. The field shrinks, even though it's the same size. It shrinks as far as trying to find a spot to get the ball in the air to somebody. And the first time he did it and he went for it, I still was like, why are you going for it? Just kick the field goal. Your quarterback's struggling already. Right now, he's still struggling, and it's only your first time in the red zone. So then I'm like, okay, I'll let him go. But the play calling was terrible. There was no 2 tight end with the fullback. Like you said, there was no, rollout. It was just like, let me hike it and try to beat a zone in the end zone. It's impossible. It's hard. Yeah. It's really hard no matter who you got. Then the second time, he did the same thing. And I'm like, and you saw how much during the game, just between the 20s, how much Darnold was struggling. But their run game was working. When they did run it, it was working. And I know it's going to be more difficult to run it when you get down within the 5 or the 7-yard line. But you got to keep them honest And when your quarterback's struggling, you got to give him some kind of help here, like you said, rolling it out or whatever. 3 times he didn't do it. He did the same thing, KOC. That's him calling the plays. And those 3 times, no, or did one time he kick a field goal? 2. Did he do it?
What was the final score?
The Vikings had 9, 31-9.
Yeah.
So the game, I think all 3 times though in that red zone, he went for it on 4th down, and he never ran the ball down there, and they got nothing out of it. And then still, this is the thing. At halftime, the game was 7-6, and then the kicker for the Vikings, the guy that looks like the accountant, he actually looks like you used to say that about a Steve Kerr. Like, did you ever get mistaken for an accountant? And when
we interviewed him.
Yeah, you said that, but to Steve Kerr, and he laughed. He goes,
Kerr went to Palisades High.
Yeah. Oh, did he?
Yeah, he went to Pacific Palisades High. It's burnt.
So Will Riker guy, the kicker of the Vikings, the rookie out of Alabama, he looks like an accountant too. And he's been hurt. Now he's back or whatever. But they're down 7-6. He kicks a field goal. It's 7-6, and then he kicks the ball out of bounds, not in the zone, right? So they get the ball on the 40.
Yeah.
And Detroit gets some yards and they get a field goal. But still, Tommy, it's 10-6 at halftime. And the third quarter, I'm thinking they're going to make adjustments on this red zone stuff. They're going to help Darnold out. Their line's getting crushed on these blitzes. They come out in the third quarter, it was the same thing. I'm like, what's this KOC doing? And this was the end. I'm going to be honest with you. I stopped watching after this. It was the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter. It was now 17-9. Detroit went down and scored a touchdown. 17-9. I think it was one of Gibbs's 3 or 4 touchdowns, whatever he had. And the Vikings drove the ball. And I think it would have been like a 40-yard. It was going to be a 51-yard field goal. It was 4th and 4. They were on the 35 because 35 plus 10 end zones, 45 plus 7 back right is 52. It was like 52-51. They're down by 8 points. It's going to be the fourth quarter right now. It's the end of the third quarter. He tries a field goal. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This is ridiculous. You went for it on all those 3 down there, and you didn't make nothing. You're down still. You're playing like crap. You haven't made any adjustments. You're only down by 8. It's 4th and 4 on their 35. I think I would go for it. And then I go for 2 if I can get a touchdown.
O'Connell, that was, yeah.
He got out-coached. I have no idea what he was doing. Talk about Riverboat Ron.
Yeah.
He's like the reincarnation of Riverboat Ron, who used to do all those crazy things. I said something to myself. I was watching it. I go, I think KOC thinks he's like related to Campbell, like his brother, like his, because he's like doing these crazy things on 4th down and stuff.
I don't even think. Listen, Dan Campbell's not going to win playing that way. Like that's like everybody keeps giving him credit for going for it. It's stupid. Half the time it's dumb. He doesn't. He blew the game against San Francisco last year. They should have been in the Super Bowl. Dan Campbell gets way too much credit. And I get it. I know that the Detroit Lions were a laughingstock until Dan Campbell took over. So he's got like a great way of creating culture, and he's got a great energy about him. But his in-game strategies are terrible. And that going for it on 4th down all the time. And his explanation is it's because that's who we are. Bullshit. That's not who you are. Because you don't always make it.
The thing about KOC was like, KOC kept going for those, and then he had that opportunity that he needed to go for it, and the announcers are like, well, that's because he's got to keep up with Detroit because Detroit can score at will. I'm like, what do you mean? The game was like they had 9 points. Detroit had 9 or 10 points. They didn't have like 21 points in the first half or 17 points in the first half. They ended up having 10, and all those red zones happened in the first half. And I'm like, no, this is not about keeping up with them. The defense is playing good. The Vikings defense could play good against them. The only chance they had to win in that game was Kevin O'Connell. He screwed it up. He went for too many chances. Darnold didn't play well, but they didn't give him any kind of help. But I want to say one last thing. The only way I was going to win that game is if little Cam Akers on that big run when he ran 58 yards, if he scored instead of going out he got tackled at the 5. And then the other one where Pace intercepting that ball deep in Detroit's end zone. He fell down. He only had 10 yards to go to get a touchdown. That was the only way I was going to win that. But anyway,
okay. So
I appreciate you.
Let's move on. This is turned into a Vikings.
My confession.
So
it's my confession.
No, so moving on. You know, it's funny because we talked about the Vikings, we talk about the Buffalo Bills, you know, and these teams that are perennial losers, and the Detroit Lions, right? The three teams that never, ever have won, right? And it's funny. They're not going to win this year either. I'm sorry, but the Super Bowl is probably going to be Kansas City against Philadelphia again.
Yep.
Like all these upstarts that everybody loves and everyone says, finally, you know, the Lions after 100 years of futility. Dan Campbell's going to get no big game. He's going to play a great team, and he's going to do these things that, you know, like Dan Campbell coaches the game to keep trying to make a statement of what they are. Like if you coach a game by saying this is what we are, this is what we're going to do, you don't need to do that anymore. The team they've already proven to be tough-minded, opportunistic. They've already proven to be a really good team. You don't have to keep calling the play to keep saying this is who we are. When you coach a game saying this is who we are, you're not going to win. He didn't win against San Francisco. He's not going to win against Philadelphia doing that. It's not going to work, you know. So they're not going to win. The Bills will find some way to blow it against the Chiefs because I don't know what it is with the Chiefs, but they win tight games, and they got Joe Montana. You know, they got Joe Montana and Bill Walsh. Basically, they do. Like Mahomes and Reed are Joe Montana and Bill Walsh. So they win all these games. And the other thing the Chiefs did was they did the same thing that Joe Montana's 49ers did. They had a tough defense. People don't realize the 49ers had a tough defense in the 80s. So this Chiefs team has a tough defense, tougher than the Bills. So the Chiefs and the freaking Eagles are going to be in the Super Bowl. I'm sorry, but that's who I would pick right now, even though I don't think the Eagles are that great. But because these teams, they come up to these moments and they always tank. They always, like the Bills, you know, they had the game against the Chiefs years ago where there was 13 seconds left in the game and they had the lead, and the coach had no guts to kick a squibber. He kicked it into the end zone and he gave Mahomes 2 plays to get in the field goal range with a timeout. He had no guts. He said, let's play it safe. Kick it in the end zone. We'll play defense. No. You squib it down the field. The guy's got to run it back. It's going to take 6 seconds off the clock. You know, like that's what these teams do. McDermott, Dan Campbell, KOC, they're going to find some way to blow it in these playoffs. And the guys that have been there, they're gonna get there again.
Yeah, because so even obviously KC will be home against the Bills, but even though Detroit would be home against Philly, you don't care. You still think he's going to screw it up.
I think Detroit's a better team, although Detroit's injured, and the injuries are going to get them. Detroit's seriously injured.
Yeah,
they're missing Aiden Hutchinson, their best pass rusher. They're missing Aleem McNeil. They're all pro defensive tackle. Yep. They're missing a secondary guy, so they're seriously injured. The Vikings.
And some guy Monday got hurt, Tommy. A D-back got hurt Monday.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the Vikings could not exploit their injuries. The Eagles will. They'll run the ball down their throats. They won't let them blitz the Hurts the way they did. They won't let the Lions blitz dictate the game. The Vikings let the Lions defense dictate the game. You can't let an injured defense dictate the game. No. You have to dictate it. You run the ball down their throats. They don't have their guys, but they didn't do that. So I don't like. I think the Lions are the better team, and they're home, and that it's tough going in that Ford Stadium, Ford Field. It's tough going in there, but I just think that they're injured, and that's going to catch up to them. And I also don't trust the coach because he blew the game last year. He just completely blew that game.
It's almost like he goes for things just like you said because he says that's who we are, and he doesn't look at it like in the present moment of what the scenario is.
Well, in his interviews, when he says that's who we are, that's not an answer. That's not a response to the question. Like I'm sorry, but saying that's who we are, it doesn't take into consideration the situation.
Yeah,
you're in a game. You're winning like against the Niners. You're winning by 7 or you're winning by 10, and you're not looking at you're not trying to win the game. Herm Edwards years ago said it best: "You play to win the game. You don't play to make a statement. You don't play to say that's. You play to win the game." And I don't think Dan Campbell's done that.
Because scenarios and where the game is at that particular time when you have to make that decision, that's going to dictate the scenario.
I've heard, the announcers, whether it was Collinsworth or Troy Aikman or one of them, I heard them say, Campbell's done a tremendous job with this team, and this team believes in him. They believe they're going to make it on 4th down. Campbell's done a great job. Yes, the mentality of that team is right where you want it. It's right there, But you don't. But if you don't go for it on 4th down, if you punt on one of them, the team isn't going to suddenly go, "Oh my God, what's going on? Are we not trying to win this game?" It's not going to affect the mindset of the team.
Yeah, no,
they want to win too. So.
But anyway, did you want to wait?
I got to get going. So,
did you want to? Okay, we'll talk about coaches next week. There's going to be a lot of there's coach movement going on right now. But real quick, just give me your top 3 games. Who you would take? I think you already told me, but just recap.
I don't. Yeah, but I don't have unfortunately, I don't have 3. I would take. Okay. I mean, the main game is I'm going to take. Washington over Tampa Bay. I think that's going to be a high-scoring affair. I don't trust Tampa Bay's defense, right? I like Washington. They're only getting 3 points. I like them. I like on Saturday, I like the Chargers over the Texans, but not a lot. I wouldn't bet the house on that one. And then Monday, I would take the Rams over the Vikings. Yeah. I just think that the Rams are going to affect Minnesota too. Although the Vikings have superior talent on offense. I mean, they're a great offensive team. But I would take those are the 3 games I would take. But I wouldn't bet these games. I mean, that's just if I had to.
Yeah. So I think I would take. I like the Chargers too. I would take the Chargers -3. That's probably the team I like the most.
But the Chargers aren't minus. Oh my God, the Chargers are -3.
Yeah, they're -3. I would take the Chargers. Because I would take the Chargers of all the teams because the Ravens game, the line's too big. The Buffalo game, the line's too big. The Philly-Packer game, I think Philly would be my second team I would take. But I would say I'm going to take the Chargers, and then I'm going to take 2 overs. I'm going to take the Viking game over. I'm going to take the Commanders game over.
Okay.
But it's close. Those other games are close because it's very hard to take those teams. Buffalo -8. Baltimore -9.5, even Philly -4.5. That game's going to be 5.5 by game time. But and you never know with the Packers, even though they got injuries. But I think the best team on that game that is the Chargers minus the 3. But I also think your Commanders is a tricky bet, and it's +3. I mean, why not? They may have trouble with Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how Daniels is going to show up. I mean, I love Baker. I just do. I love Baker, and I like their offense. I just don't. I don't know. Jaden Daniels is the wild card. If they could make him have a bad game,
he could get hurt. Who knows? But I'm going to go with Harbaugh. I like him. I like the Chargers because the Texans just are not good. That's why they're -3 on the road. The Chargers. Yeah. And I really think those 2 games, my two overs are I think they'll happen. But I like your Commanders pick too. If all those picks, because you can't pick the Packers, you can't pick the Broncos, the Bills, Steelers, Ravens. You can't do those. Either favorites or dogs. The Commanders is a tricky pick. It's all going to be Daniels. If he can get that offense moving, they're going to have a chance.
Yep, I agree.
All right, buddy. So that's it. So I'll talk to you during the weekend about the games, and then Monday I'll text you. I'll be in that little man cave at the Buffalo.
Yeah, we'll be talking. We'll be talking Monday.
Reach out. But the problem is I won't get home till midnight. It's
that's okay. As long as you get home with a win, it's okay.
Put your hands together for old men in sweat. Old men in sweat. Put your hands together, y'all. Barry D, Tommy T. We gonna have a good time tonight. Let's go. It's old men in sweat.